What's going on, everyone? Back here for another episode of Golf on Tap. As always, I'm Jack Bushman, joined by Ross Baran. But today is a special episode of Golf on Tap because we're very pleased to have on none other than Mark Milatz, better known as Mark the Caddie on X. You can make sure to go and give him a follow on there for some great caddy stories. And as I've noticed since I've been following Mark, some other hilarious posts along the way as well. You may also recognize him as the author of Caddie Tales, a looper's search for lost golf balls and what he found instead. He's also recently started the Caddie Tales podcast. He's booming on social media. I'll have all the links and everything down low in the description, so everyone listening or everyone viewing out there will be able to go and check him out. Mark, I know we've been prepping for this for the last couple of weeks. You and Ross have been in touch. I know we're both very excited to have you on, and on behalf of both of us, thank you very much for joining the show. How is life treating you today, brother?
Well, it's my pleasure, my privilege to be here. Thank you very much. And I can't complain. And as we were just talking off air, have had a nice mild Wisconsin winter. So that gets the juices flowing for the excitement of starting a new season of caddying. And I'm excited. Tomorrow is going to be February 27th, and I am playing golf here in the state of Wisconsin. Never, ever would I have dreamed that. So what do I have to complain about?
Absolutely. It started to, I'm here in the Chicagoland area. It started to heat up here a little bit as well. And I've been seeing some folks golfing. So I've been starting to get that itch myself to get back out there and hopefully make this season a good one. But Mark, I figure where we kind of start this conversation is with your book, Caddie Tales. And I know you dove in there heavily about how it was an unexpected up and down type of journey to kind of get to this point where you are right now. And for all the listeners and viewers out there who might not be as familiar, would you kind of mind going into detail about what kind of led you to becoming a caddy? How'd you end up at Whistling Straits and everything in between that's led you to this road?
Yeah. Thank you for the question. I wish that I could say it was a fun story to tell. It's rather embarrassing and rather hard still to talk about it. In my past, I actually, my first career was that I served as a pastor, and many of your listeners may be familiar with that as they go to churches, and the reality is many may not, or they may have a picture of what that is. Without getting too deep into it, I'll just say it's a grueling profession, one that is not only physically demanding. You work long hours when people think maybe you work one day a week, but it's emotionally and spiritually draining. And just picture all the worst things you see on a social media site like Twitter or X or any of the other sites, and understand that like a pastor's dealing with that on a regular basis in much more intimate and personal ways. And so you have to be prepared for it. And the reality of the matter is that I was not. I just did not go into it prepared for the journey. And because of that, I experienced a lot of anxiety and depression. And when you feel anxious, when you feel depressed, when you feel lonely and isolated, you tend to look for ways to make yourself feel better. And there's a whole slew of ways that people do that. We know for me, I really drank too much and abused alcohol. And then that led to other poor choices, the misuse of money that wasn't mine to misuse, and not to get rich, but, excessive gift giving for people, or looking to be the hero and step in to fix situations. And it was all misguided attempts to kind of feel better. And the more you do stuff that isn't right, the worse you feel. And so then you try to cover it up more and more. So that's a kind of a long-winded way to say I was just a total mess. And eventually it just all came tumbling down, the house of cards that I had kind of built my life on. On the outside, it looked great. I have a wonderful wife. I have 4 amazing kids, and things look good. But on the inside, I was just completely torn apart. So one day I just found myself without my vocation, without a church, and really needing to start all over again. And that's a tough thing to do when you are in your 40s. And I really didn't know what was going to happen, but we decided we were going to move to Wisconsin. My wife grew up in Wisconsin and she has a wonderful family. And so we said we're going to go there and have the support of that. And I'd look for some work. One day, years earlier, at Christmas, my brother-in-law had mentioned to me that he thought caddies at Whistling Straits golf course did really well. And it was just kind of like an aside because their family farm was like 1.5 miles away from there. So it wasn't talking about me being a caddy or anything like that. It was just something that I remember because I felt so trapped. My ears perked up when I heard stuff like that. So I remembered him saying that when I needed a fresh start. And so I threw out an application and I ended up coming for some training and getting the job. And it was meant to be a stopgap, like I really intended it to be a 1-season thing to just kind of get our life in order, figure some things out. And one thing has led to another, and it's just been such a huge and tremendous blessing in my life. I have met so many great people. I have benefited so much from the life, and I'm so thankful for it. And so in my book, Caddie Tales, I write about some of those lessons that I've learned, some of the ways that I've observed on the golf course that life mirrors golf. And I've tried to take some of those lessons and apply them then to my own life. And then I've also tried to take some of the things I've learned and some of the hard lessons I've learned and impart them in little ways that I can to golfers to help make their experience go a little bit better.
So on a whim, basically, you wind up caddying. You didn't have any experience as when you were younger whatsoever? You just kind of...
No. I had played golf in like church golf leagues. But I'm a high handicap golfer. I'm not a passionate golfer. And it wasn't a huge part of my life. Like if you would have said to me 6 years ago, you're never going to golf again, it wouldn't have been like this horrible thing, like I wouldn't have been devastated to hear it. And it's not something that I envision. I remember actually in the phone interview, that I had, like right when I applied, they do a little phone interview to see like if you should even go to the next step. And I remember 2 questions I was asked. One was how many clubs go in a bag? And I guessed correctly 14, but I did not really know that's the number, And then because I'm also a laid back guy about that kind of stuff. So even if I was a big golfer, it wouldn't be something I was real worried about.
Right.
And then the other one was, what's a 4 caddy? So to tell you how ignorant it was, I didn't know what a 4 caddy was as recently as the end of 2018. And but somehow, some way I like tricked them into letting me come for an in-person interview and the training and stuff. But yeah, it was not a big part of my life at all. It was literally desperation. Let's do something to feed my family while I have some other things that I can maybe get together.
And what would you say were your kind of emotions stepping into caddying? What were your biggest fears, or what were kind of your biggest concerns about kind of having to learn that on the fly?
Yeah, so there's 2 really big ones. One was physical. Like I remember barely being able to walk like my first week of doing it when I was done with like it was like your hands are seizing up and you're just like almost crippled out there because your body needs to get used to carrying 2 bags on your shoulders. So physically I was really scared about that. And then secondly was, and this wasn't maybe as much of a concern as the physical one, only because I didn't know what I was getting into enough to be too scared about it. But I was like, a golfer's going to ask me something, I'm going to have no clue, what the answer is. And right away on my, my first loop ever was this nice gentleman from Savannah, Georgia, nice Southern gentleman. And we were out there with a veteran caddy who was meant to be like the lead guy. But the second day I got thrown to the wolves, and I'm out there with guys who are like low handicap golfers playing the back tees. And they knew more golf than I could have ever hope to at that point. And it was like, you're kind of embarrassed and you're just scared. And then they're like, what do you think this putt's going to do? And you're like, oh, this is the second time I've ever seen a ball putt on this green. So I have no idea. Let me guess. And
was that way?
Yeah. So there's a little bit of baptism by fire, learn on the job. And that's pretty scary when you're dealing with people who are there's a lot of really high functioning professionals that we meet out on the course, and they expect the best. And so thankfully I was humble enough to really learn from the veteran caddies that I was placed with on a loop to kind of follow their lead and ask them for help when I needed it. I came to it with zero cockiness.
Might have been the best way to go about it.
Yeah.
So Mark, my biggest question is, I'm sure things have changed over time as you've gotten more and more into the caddying, but like you said, you do have the big players come to the course expecting the best. What do you tell them your handicap's at now?
Yeah. Yeah. So I write about this in Caddy Tales, and my co-host on my podcast, Nick, one day, I was noticing when we would caddy together, people would ask him his handicap and he would say 7. And so then we ended up going golfing at Erin Hills, and legit, it was maybe the second time I had golfed that year. And we were pretty close, I shot like 101. He might have been in the 90s, but he's a good enough friend that I'm like, dude, you are not a 7 handicap. What? He goes, I know. But I got to tell people that so that I have credibility out there. And I'm like, from now on, I'm a 7 handicap. And so, I actually went through a stretch where I was telling people that. Now I just tell people, I don't get to play a lot and stuff. So because I feel 10 times more confident with my ability out there. And to be honest, I don't think you have to be, once you really, like when you work at a course day in and day out and stuff, you don't really have to be a great golfer yourself to caddy effectively. And so as I've grown in my confidence, I don't worry about it as much.
How long would you say it took for you to get that confidence in both yourself and the knowledge of the course, where you really actually started to feel comfortable in what you were doing?
Yeah. I would say everything but reading greens comes relatively quickly. I would say, one of the things that I think I do well and my fellow caddies just do amazing is really judging what a ball is, what a distance, and then adjusting for the wind or whatever. That just seemed to come pretty naturally. You learn what the aiming points are pretty quickly. But being confident on the greens, I would say really the whole first season, there's a little bit of trepidation there. And especially if you were someone who maybe is slamming their club or acting really intense or whatever, it's not so much that you don't know it. It's you don't feel confident saying it. Now it's like you feel you say it and you're confident, and if they miss it, they miss it. You don't let it affect you. But that first year it was like, oh my gosh, they're going to hate me. They're not going to tip me or whatever. You're a little bit scared like that.
Right. And you don't know the ins and outs of kind of how it works. And, when it's your livelihood on the line, as you said, making this transition, not, a lot of young people are the ones who are caddying and starting at an early age is something you see pretty common. So you're a pretty unique story, and going into that situation literally with no prior experience or not just sure what to expect whatsoever, on top of having to learn everything on the fly, must have been kind of like a double whammy.
There's very few people with my demographic. It's like the caddies are either guys my age, but they've been doing it for 20, 25 years. And then there's the young guys who come who have usually our young guys are pretty passionate golfers, and that's why they're caddying, and they're using it as either a college job or a gateway into the industry in a broader way. And so there's very few people who are like, hey, I'm 40 something and I just blew up my life and I need a new career and I'm going to go start caddying. I mean, I think I'm the one at my course. So yeah.
Yeah. Let's just go and try this out. See if it works.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing that you alluded to is, some of the hothead golfers, the guys that slam their clubs, everything. Were you able to just kind of take that in stride when you started compared to now? Or was that something that you kind of had to learn to develop where you really want to say something, but I'm just going to hold it in? Or has just kind of always been, it's not me. I'm not going to let it affect my day.
Yeah. There's the beauty of this job in comparison to my former life is I always had somebody complaining about something to me in my former life, but like it was this deep, intimate relationship. You'd do something or walk alongside somebody for years and bend over backwards or whatever. And then one day church goes too long or their kid doesn't like an activity or something and they're all over you or they leave. Those types of things like hurt, like were soul crushing pain. The beauty of caddying is you see some of the same behavior exhibited, but at 5 hours, you wave goodbye. And so that's been some freedom that to me has been amazing. But the second thing I would say is we had some really good guys training us. And I really took, when I learned some of the best caddies in the program have guys who treat them like dirt every now and then. That was like freeing also because you're like, you realize it's not really about me most times. There's no doubt there's days you screw up, you just don't see something right or you don't communicate effectively. Absolutely. But I'm talking about those things where you just have somebody who is like got these unrealistic expectations or they just have a bad temper or whatever. Well, it happens to the caddy of the year. It happens to the best caddies in the program. I've seen people, get mad at them. And there's just was something like freeing about that. Cause you're like, if it happens to them, then it's really not about them and it's not about me. And so I can kind of not take it to heart and I can move on.
And then how long do you think into your caddying journey did you foresee this possibly being something you would do long-term or even realize this was something you wanted to do long-term? I know you said originally it was kind of like a one season thing to get everything back on track. How long did it take for you to kind of recognize this is something that could be a career?
Well, I would say that the thing that really probably impacted that the most is that COVID came after my first year. And so now all of a sudden you have these limited options out there or changed options. And so that was my second year of COVID, the lockdown and all that happened pre-second season. And the golf industry was the one that benefited the most out of COVID. I mean, you hate to say it, but it was like the best thing that ever happened to golf in a lot of ways, unless you're somebody who's upset that golf courses are crowded now. But it was really a cool thing in a lot of ways because people went to golf courses. So we worked and it was great. The following season or the following off season, I worked at a cheese factory and I had thoughts then about, okay, try to move up in that, profession, become a manager of some sort. And I think that door was open. The factories around here definitely promote from within, and there's a lot of opportunity. I think that there was a point during that off season where I thought I really had to wrestle with, am I going to stay here and have the stability of a real job? One that's valued more by the kind of agrarian influences of, Southeast Wisconsin. People value hard labor in that regard. Or was I going to have kind of the instability of the golf life? And ultimately the golf kept calling me back. It kept pulling me back. And I just knew that I would miss it too much. And, because not only do I really like the work, but the camaraderie with the other caddies became necessary for me as I uprooted my life and moved somewhere where I don't know people and where I need to be around some folks that you can, you have some fun with, but also it's a pretty non-judgmental community. And so, yeah, I just kept getting drawn back. And so then that was when I kind of decided, for kicks and giggles, I'm going to start a Twitter account, which was a very random thing. Like, it was just one night I was bored and I did it, and I started throwing some stuff up there, and stuff now that I wouldn't put up there because it was probably a little more, I don't know, critical of golf, or, it wasn't quite as positive as I try to be on there, but I was trying to get eyes or whatever. But that was a very random thing. And, but then I said, okay, we'll see what this does. And that's kind of taken off in a way that I haven't expected it to. I mean, it's not like you make a bunch of money from it, or I'm going to retire on it or anything like that. But there's no doubt it has scratched an itch in my life to feel like I'm a part of something. And I had missed that, a little bit. And so caddying and the golf life and the golf community has really probably been more meaningful to me than it has to a lot of other people. And that's an interesting thing to say, considering I'm certainly not as good at golf as many people, and I'm not as serious or passionate about it, but the whole lifestyle I've become serious and passionate about.
I think the most Wisconsin. Go ahead, Ross. Sorry, buddy.
No, I was going to say I can definitely. I think me and Jack can both relate where that scratching that itch where I got pulled off the street by On Tap Sports 5 months ago to be up here and doing these kind of things, and it still blows my mind I have these opportunities. But one thing I did really want to ask. You mentioned that you caddied through like through the COVID and everything. And I want to know, first of all, did they institute the pool noodles and the cups? And second of all, if they did, is that where you saw the lowest rounds you've seen shot? Because you're just shooting at the noodle.
No, actually, they might have early at the very beginning. But no, we actually had a very normal. They did try to have every caddies wear masks, but to be honest, that made the golfers more uncomfortable than anything. Like, I get why maybe there was this corporate pressure to say caddies wear masks, but I think everyone in hindsight would agree that that wasn't necessary. And so right after the first tee box, most caddies would pull it down because my big thing was caddies. I mean, the players hated it. They're like, we're going to have you guys lugging 2 bags around for us in the heat with a mask on. And then there was even issues that year with water on the course because they weren't putting water out where they had normally put it. It was kind of
about that.
Yeah. But no, it was pretty normal. And no, but the best round I ever saw was the COVID year. And but no, that was just an alcohol-induced fury of adrenaline or something, but that guy killed it.
Speaking of alcohol-induced adrenaline, I think we got to talk about the Ryder Cup at Whistling Straits. A lot of booze flowing there. Just kind of when I bring up the Ryder Cup from 2021 at Whistling Straits, what are kind of the first things that come to mind? I'm sure that had to be an incredible week, seeing your course that you're on so frequently, put into the public spotlight and everything. What are your kind of like first memories or your favorite moments, and what comes to mind when I bring up the Ryder Cup?
Yeah. To be honest, the buildup was way more fun than the actual tournament. It was cool to see all the stuff going up. One of the kind of the unexpected things that was awesome about that year was a lot of the places that they were building stuff were just the perfect aiming spots. So that it was just much easier to tell players where to aim at something that season than it is other years. And but I was blown away, literally shocked at how extensive the construction was for that event. I mean, it was fascinating to me how much went into it. And then there was a great source of pride that it's coming to this place that I work, but I went to 2 practice rounds, and that was cool. And I went to the first day. I was one of the people who sprinted to the stands for the pre-dawn chanting and the first shots, and that was pretty awesome to be sure. My greatest memory though was the day that I sat in, it must have been Saturday, that I sat in my living room, on Sunday with my family and my wife and kids and whatever, and I got to just share the course with them because it's a big part of my life, but they don't go out there, they don't play golf there. And so, and then I had a bunch of friends from Michigan, in my previous life who knew I had become a caddy texting me because I don't think most of them aren't like immersed in the golf world. And so they had no idea that it looked like that because I'm saying, you got to turn on your television and see this. So that's what I remember most was that sense of pride about being, working there. And, but like, to be honest, the Ryder Cup, I don't know if either of you have ever been, but there's, so few groups and all those fans that the congestion is a little more than somebody who's a little claustrophobic wants to deal with. And things like standing in line for refreshments or whatever, I think was the lines got pretty long and stuff. But it was a really awesome event, and I hope one comes back again someday. And everyone always asks us, what's next, and we don't know. And it's a place that's built for majors and stuff. So
Yes, sir.
There's not just going to be a regular tour stop there, I don't think. So who knows when something will come, but when it does, it's pretty special.
Yeah, I got lucky enough last year being out here in Rochester. We had the PGA Championship here at Oak Hill. And then next year, Ryder Cup is at Bethpage Black, which is about a 5-hour drive from my home currently. So I'm currently attempting to make it out there. But really what I wanted to ask you is just on top of your journey and everything, you're at Whistling Straits. You are at one of the crown jewel golf courses, not just the country, the world. Just how awesome is that, especially for a golf nerd like me, that you get to walk those grounds as a career?
Yeah, no, there's no doubt that I don't take it for granted. Every caddy has their days where they gripe a little bit because, you get tired, but some days it's harder. The groups are harder than others, so everybody has their days. I'm not going to say that I click my heels and hop down the fairway every day. But I generally am able to be more positive than a lot. And I know for certain that I do a good job imparting some joyfulness to our guests, like I'm a pretty good ambassador for the place. And I just never take it for granted. And people ask you, does this ever get old? And like I said, there's days where you would rather like not do a second loop, or you would rather, get home earlier or whatever. But in reality, the question, does it ever get old? No, I can honestly say every single time I have walked that course, I've looked out on the lake or at something and just been thankful for it. And I hope that continues. And it is a special place. I've noticed on golf Twitter, there's if you throw out which golf course is the best or whatever, that you could have people debate forever. And I've seen people like, maybe the only course I haven't seen anything negative written about is Augusta. And that's maybe the lore of it all, but to me, I'll golf other golf courses, and there might be some that I love and whatever. There will never be anything that's as special to me as Whistling Straits. It's got a part of my heart now.
Did you recognize, like, right off the rip, or did you like understand the allure that came with Whistling Straits when you first started working there, or did it just happen to be that type of golf course?
So I'll tell you this. No, we had come and visited in the summer and stuff, and like maybe for the first PGA Championship, we were there around that time. We had heard about it. Okay. My wife's family, like I said, grew up on a farm around the corner, 1.5 to 2 miles. Me and my wife literally got married at the church on the corner that is outside the entrance of the Whistling Straits, like
no way.
Down the road, half a mile or whatever, a mile. And her parents have been like members there since her dad was born 70 some years ago. And I bring that up to say, I didn't know Whistling Straits was down the road when I came for my interview.
That's insane.
And so, like it just didn't mean anything to me. Like it meant something to me as far as maybe watching on TV and saying, oh, cool, that's where my wife is from. But it wasn't like a place that I planned. Like, I wasn't like, oh, some year when we come and visit, I've got to be able to play. Like that never crossed my mind.
That's so crazy. I can't believe that.
Yeah. And I think that makes it all the better.
Right. I was just about to say that.
Yeah. Because like, it's a reminder that, and I say this at the end of my podcast, I write about this in Caddie Tales, but I really mean it. Everybody goes through their stuff. Everybody has some really, rock bottom moments in their life. And I'll tell you, I'll be completely honest. There's times where I didn't think I was going to make it through, where the sense of shame and loss and embarrassment and grief and pain and all of that was so great that I didn't see a future. And so, and I don't know what I would have done if I didn't have a family to take care of. And so, I have learned through these last 5 years that on this side of the ground, nothing's the end of the world except the end of the world. And there's always hope, and there's always a next shot. And so you learn that, you see that on the golf course, guys blade one, shank one, whatever, but there's always a next shot. I remind them, you're one shot away from everything feeling better. You're one shot away from that one that keeps you coming back. And I've learned that in a broader way in life. And so I really want people to believe that from the bottom of my heart.
That's remarkable perspective, Mark.
So, Mark, what I'd like to know is, everyone has like that joke in their life. Well, my life's been so interesting, you could write a book about it.
Yeah.
At what point, like in this journey and like in your career, did you really start to like realize, like, I think I want to do that?
Yeah. I would say early on, I thought, oh, you could write a book out here. Just funny caddy stories, and that came kind of quickly. It evolved obviously from there. And I would say that, it weighed heavily on my to-do list or desires, really for a couple of years. And then last year I decided I just got to sit down and do this, because I felt like I had finally come through on the other side of some of the past, and it was time to. So the book was like that. It kind of served that. Okay, I'm going to go on living life again. I'm going to. It doesn't erase the past. It doesn't mean that I don't still grieve, or that I don't understand that there's work to do to reconcile and heal relationships. It just means that it's time to move forward and try to be positive and be a positive presence in the new life that I've been given. And it may not be, it might not look the same, but there's a lot of things that, transcend whatever job we're in. We're still called to be good to others and try to help them have a little better day. And, when we're in business, we're all there to serve our clients and, whatever it is. So this is the setting that I get to put those things into practice on.
And I will commend you, just because I did obviously read the book and you and I chatted about it. I will commend you that is very apparent in your writing. And I did really appreciate where you kind of talk about, going from the darker spots and the darker times, but bringing into the light what you have right now. And it's very apparent in your writing, and you do a very good job of it. So I do commend you on that.
No, thank you. And like I have a unique perspective to know everybody has their stuff. Just not everybody has maybe had it as big or as public or whatever, or the consequences as grave, or but everybody has their stuff. Everybody has their hurts. Everybody has their baggage and their pain. And I have a lot more empathy for people than I used to have. And I have a lot more gratefulness because life isn't like one big bed of roses. I mean, there's stuff that still needs to be, there's still a lot I want to accomplish. There's still some things that I need to fix and all that. There's still bad days. There's still bad all that. But there's more gratefulness for, each day that I do have. There's more freedom and less stress and all those things. They are good things, and I'm thankful for them.
And it feels like all these life lessons and things that you've kind of realized and just learned along the way. What I kind of feel is interesting is, and just about the game of golf, you can all kind of apply these to the game of golf as well. And I'm sure things about your job in particular as well. How long did it take you to kind of connect those things and maybe kind of change your perspective when you were feeling down and you were battling anxiety? How did your job in the game of golf kind of aid in those ways, if any?
Yeah. Right away, I think I'd sum it up. I'd say probably the most profound thing is just the sense of community was a healing presence. And golf does that in a great way. It fosters community. I write about this in Caddie Tales, whether it's the Caddie Shack, the community that I found there, or, to me, it's always been special to see these groups get together. And I get to work at a place where maybe the round of golf has a little more build up and planning to it than your regular Saturday, group that you get together or whatever. And so I tend to meet people more often than not where it's a very special experience, where it's very meaningful. And I just was reminded that this is what I want in my life. That we were meant to be in relationships with people that are meaningful. And so right away, I saw how golf did that. And I said, this is the door that is open for me to recapture what has been lost as I've hurt relationships or lost relationships. And so right away I saw that. And then like some of the other stuff where you can kind of like compare maybe how somebody acts or behaves on the course to some other, settings or whatever. I'd say as I just got more comfortable out there, my eyes were more opened and I was able to maybe take the leap a little bit. The first year though, it was about just not dying and trying to survive and act like I knew what I was doing and stuff. So probably the second year I became a little more comfortable.
So are you officially at the point where if someone asks you a question in regards to like a hole in approach or anything, you can say it with a straight face, but still be like, but say with a straight face, but truthfully be like, I don't know what's going to happen. But
yeah, no, I mean, I think there's no doubt like now I can, the course intimately, and so much so that like, I mean, even after somebody hits a tee shot, for instance, you have a pretty good guess to exactly how far it went and how far it is from like their next shot or whatever. I mean, that takes almost no effort now. What you do grow more confident on is let's say there's just something really hard. Yeah. Like a putt that looks brutal or whatever. You're much more open, I think, to say, yeah, good luck, like for instance, if something's just on a slope and, to stop, it'd be like putting on an ice rink or whatever, maybe my first year I'd been like, they got, now you're like, yeah, it's pretty much unmakeable or whatever, like you're able to talk more casually with players and stuff. Yeah.
Is it funny to you still for if you have a player that, hooks it way off and knowing the course intimately, that thing is gone, only for that guy to walk over there and casually just shout, found it?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you have those players. I mean, not often. There's no doubt the good outweighs the bad in every description. It's just the bad stuff tends to make better stories. It's a gentleman's game for sure. And so most people I find to be very honorable out there, which makes it even easier to spot the person who's racing ahead all the time and finding their ball. And, the thing I found is their playing partners all know it too. So, yeah, I get a kick out of it for sure. Cause like, I don't want to say I don't care. But if we're not in some, that's on them. That's their problem. Like if it's not some match for big money or like a tournament that's official or something, I guess I'm not going to care or get worked up too much about how a guy chooses to spend his day out on the course. And I don't take it personally or get all worked up about it. But yeah, you see it every now and then, that's for sure. And it does make you chuckle.
Speaking of stories, though, Mark, we can't let you off the hook in terms of, I know you got to have some good looper stories from over the years. But before we get into that, I did want to ask you, you mentioned that the best round you ever saw at Whistling Straits came during COVID. What was that score? And did you have a feeling that was possible in the middle of the round?
Yeah,
Like, kind of take me through it.
No, this was a cool group of guys. No, you didn't see it coming. It was their second round of the day. I guess I double looped that day. It had to have been a Friday, and it was a Friday. And I remember actually they had played another course in the morning, so they came up like we met them as basically our round was about to start because they were playing 36 that day, and they were already tipsy. And we had another 5-hour walk in front of us. And this dude shot 69 from the blue tees, 7,100, 7,200 yards.
Whew.
And he was hammered. And what I actually like more about his golf, just hammered. What I like most about his golf, more than his golf game, though, was a lot of times when guys drink too much out there, they fizzle out at some point, and it becomes, I don't want to say annoying. That's too harsh of a word, but it's not always as fun as it sounds. I'll say that. And they get tired or they start getting ornery, whatever. This guy just kept getting funnier and more likable. And I can't think of anybody else where I've had that experience with him, and he was so good. And and then we went with him again a couple days later. And I didn't think we could recreate the magic. And he shot a 69 again, still drunk, not as drunk, but that day there was a ton of wind. And so that added a whole element to it. And I remember I've conversed with him and I've told him I tell this story all the time. So I have his permission to anyone out there listening. And, but it was amazing. But the thing that sticks with me too about him, and I thought about him this weekend with the golf tournament in Mexico. You had two guys going for their first ever win. Okay. Well, this guy that I had caddy for, he had played college golf, D1 college golf, and he was like a big time player on his team at a big time program. And he tried to go pro. And I remember asking him during the round, what it was like. He hated it. He hated the lifestyle. He hated being on the road, because at first, and you got to remember the money for golf has grown so much relatively recently, that maybe 20 years ago when this guy had gotten out of college, it wasn't like this.
Right.
And he, so you're grinding. And I think maybe he had a pretty good upbringing to where he knew he had options if he didn't golf. But he hated it. And he said, he was very honest. He just said, the thing that separated me from those guys you see on TV at the top of the league is all up here. He goes, I just didn't have it. And he was very honest about it, very matter of fact. I didn't look down on him for it. And I thought about him this weekend because I was watching the two leaders both going for the first one. And I'm like, well, what mental fortitude do they have? Are they going to exhibit it? Because I know what I would do. I would absolutely fall apart. I would be completely nervous. I'd miss 1 foot putts and whatever. And there was a hole on the back nine where one of them hit it in the water, and then the next guy almost hit it into the water. And I thought, it's happening. The mental grind is getting to him. And I thought back to that player, and I'm reminded continuously, golf is hard.
Oh yeah.
But when you add those stakes to it, it becomes much, much harder.
Yeah.
I think that was one of the first conversations you and I actually had offline was around the time when Nick Dunlap won on tour. And one of our conversations was just he had ice in his veins that he was locked in. Nothing was going to stop him at that point.
Yeah. And then I think I might have mentioned that I wasn't sure how he'd do foul. And I think, didn't he come in like last place the next tournament that he was in? I mean, it's like, I said, I think he might have a little setback. And I mean, it's just that whole element of golf is fascinating to me, because I'll tell you, we talk about pace of play a lot, and I talk about it a lot. I tweet about it. I talk about, besides the fact that I just want pace of play to be well, I'll tell you, I don't know that I've ever seen a player do better because they stand over the ball longer. You know, like it's like a legitimate desire to help them be better. Like, just get up there and stop thinking so much, because I hardly ever see it help anybody. And it just makes them nervous and whatever. And because the mental part of the game is something that serious players just have to really deal with.
Yeah, the fortitude that Jake Knapp showed yesterday to kind of didn't have it going on the front nine, made a couple of early bogeys, but then had a bunch of really clutch up and downs. And like you said, two rookies on the PGA Tour who don't really have a lot of experience to lean on and going for those first wins. I couldn't imagine everything that was going on through their minds. And like you said, golf is a hard, beautiful game. And when it's going well, it seems so easy, but when it's going bad, it can seem impossible.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, you'll see guys out there and gals, you know, they have talent, you know, like I'll tell guys sometimes, like, I'm not judging you. I can tell you're a good player. It's just not, you know, it's in your head right now, you know, and you got to figure out a way to settle down. I see it all the time. Guys just, they get the yips or the shanks or whatever, and it just overwhelms their psyche. And I'll be like, you know, I've seen you hit the ball at the range or whatever. You have talent, so let's just calm down and get back to that.
That actually happened. I don't know if either of you saw over the weekend, since we were talking about it, on the DP World Tour. The leader going into the final round caught the yips and started shanking everything left and right.
Sounds like the DP World Tour. Those finishes are always crazy, I swear.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it happens to these amazing players. I mean, I'll tell you, like, I've said numerous times, the thing that I probably dislike the most about caddying is just unrealistic expectations, because it's like you're not only like our professional golfers just at a different level. The people we see on TV are even at a different level than a bunch of other professional golfers. And, you know, it's like, we don't see that guy, you know, who finishes last and, you know, knocks one into somebody's yard or whatever, or the person who lips out a 3-footer, you know, but it happens every single week.
And speaking of knocking it into someone's yard, I got to ask about some of the wildest or maybe the craziest rounds. When I ask for a crazy round, what's the first one that comes to mind in your days of caddying?
Oh gosh.
I know that's kind of vague, but
yeah, you know, I'd say that there's, you know, you have probably not golf related. When I think of a crazy round, I'm thinking about just guys who get a little rowdy and they're playing music and drinking a bunch and flirting with, you know, the cart girls or whatever. You know, and sometimes that's fun, you know, if they're just out there to have a good time, that's great. But then I think like other crazy one, there's different kinds of crazy. I mean, you'll have rounds out there that'll go like an hour longer than they'll need to, because people are like, marking 6-inch putts and asking you what ways it's going to break and whatever. I mean, that's crazy to me. And that'll happen every now and then. So, and then you have like, definitely the thing that people often show interest in is the people who kind of go ballistic out there. I write a story in my book about a guy who starts throwing his bag around the course because of a banana getting smushed in it and stuff. And, you know, you'll have that every now and then as well. And so one of the things about caddying, that's for sure, is one day to the next, you don't know what you're going to get. You really don't. It's we call it the golf bag lottery when we're waiting to get called up to the bag drop. You know, you might have the worst round of your life, you know, the worst group you've ever had, but right in front of you and right behind you, people come in and they made this bundle of money and they exchanged phone numbers and whatever with their people. You just don't know what you're going to, and then vice versa. You might be on the positive side that day. That's one thing you have to learn as a caddy. I've noticed the young caddies don't always get this, is you can't get too high or too low. You know, like there's just going to be some days guys don't tip you very well, even though you did a good job. And then there's going to be some days where they hand you a wad of money, even though you basically did nothing for them, you know, and also personality wise and all that kind of stuff is part of it as well. So you can't get too high or too low. That's something I definitely have gotten better with, over the years.
Yeah, I can let you know now if I ever show up at Whistling Straits. I tip really well, but expect it's going to be about 100. But I'm going to have a great time while I do it.
Yeah, no, and I remind golfers, golf is supposed to be fun, and it's fun times with people we care about usually. And let's keep the main thing. Today in my podcast that I recorded, we talked a little bit about how to plan a better golf trip. And one of the suggestions I had was maybe think twice about playing a serious match, you know, for money. And my co-host disagreed with me. And I'm like, I know everybody on Twitter is going to my point is that it's a different kind of place. It's a different kind of event. It's a different get together. And if you're one of those people who's going to get all upset because you lost, and I've seen people lose, you know, I've seen millionaires play for $5. I've seen people play for more than that, a lot more. You know, it's not about the amount of money. It's a pride thing. And if it's going to ruin your day, maybe sit that one out, because you're walking these hallowed grounds, this beautiful plot of land. Somebody had a vision to take a flat piece of land and turn it into that. Let's not lose perspective and be grateful for where we're at.
Absolutely. How often you get out to play Whistling Straits? How frequent would you say you do, or do not at all?
Very infrequently. I would say Whistling Straits is the course that most of the caddies play the least by far, because who wants to walk it after caddying and stuff? So guys will play the other courses. To be honest, one of the challenges is it's so busy that it's not as easy for us to get on as people think. And some guys just want to go elsewhere just because they want to be able to, you know, be anonymous or whatever. But no, I don't get out nearly as much as the young guys. The young guys, that's, the ones who don't have to go home to a family. They're the ones who take advantage of the free. I mean, it's like a perk that's unbelievable, especially the guys who are here, you know, like just for the summer, you know, their home base is somewhere else and they go caddy there in the winter. And so that, I mean, they don't know people, or they only know the other caddies. I mean, those guys play a ton. And I get envious of that for sure.
Do you play do you play golf pretty frequently though? Like, are you playing a lot in the area even though you're not?
Yeah. So like tomorrow I'm playing, and it's going to set the tone. I have set the goal that this year I'm going to play a lot more. Yeah. You know, that's a real goal, because I want to get better. And to be honest, I got to start thinking about, like, when I have 2 kids in college, 2 yet, 1 in high school, and then a little younger one, but it's not far off until I'm an empty nester. And I'm like, I got to start planning a little more seriously about what am I going to do when all the kids are gone. And I told my wife many a times, we got to get her playing more, because I don't know that we know how to be like alone in the same room, like without kids being the center of the world or whatever. So there's a lot of things we're going to, like couples, can date and do all that kind of stuff, but golf's going to be one of those central activities I really hope moving forward.
Well, I mean that it's going to help you for the future as a caddy when you are looping for someone and you say, it's going to break a couple feet to the right, and when the guy says, "Are you sure?" you can say, "Yeah, because I knocked it down yesterday."
Yeah, right. yeah. No, it's definitely something. I mean, I play and I get out there and I take advantage of the free golf for sure. And then there's other times where I've gotten out with guys, like little outings and stuff. But I'd like to, this year I've even thought about, like, how do I plan my days off to, be most advantageous for getting golf in. So now that, I'll have another driver in the house in a few months, she'll turn 16. It really frees you up to not have to be, it's I don't know if, I heard you, Ross, mention you have a kid, but I don't know about you, Jack, but when those little buggers need to be driven here and there and everywhere, it does affect your golf game.
I'm sure. I can imagine. I don't have a kid, but I could imagine.
Wesley will be 4 in about 7 weeks now, and our recent investment was I got him the little baby putter, so he comes of course with me.
You'll have to look. There's a guy on Twitter, by the way, selling toddler golf bags. You'll have to.
I did see that.
He's killing it, man. Tyler Nielsen, I think, is his name, and what a. Hey, that's a free plug, by the way, Tyler. You're welcome. No, what a great idea. Golf is the best industry to get in, to come up with an idea, because it's a demographic with a lot of upper middle class people and men who will buy anything you basically sell them. And so I'm I try to think about what can I think of, but I never do.
Well, I mean, Wesley, I was bringing the classic Little Tykes plastic clubs he'd bring out, but then all he would do is ride in the cart last year until we got to the green, and then he would want to putt.
Yeah.
And so I had invested. I got him it's like a 2.5 foot putter, and he rides in the cart until we get to the green. And when we get to the green, he grabs his ball, he grabs his putter, he throws it down, and he keeps tapping it until it goes in the hole.
That's awesome.
Start him early, baby.
Yeah, that's right.
Got to. I'm looking at college scholarship here.
Yeah, right. Golf game might be a whole lot better knowing that's secured for in the future, Ross.
Yeah, we'll see.
But Mark, last question that I kind of had, I don't know if Ross has anything more that he wanted to ask you about, as we're getting close to an hour here, but what is kind of just your biggest takeaway from this journey that you found yourself on now as a caddy? What's the biggest thing you've learned, or just the biggest kind of realization that you've had about everything that's taken you here?
Yeah, like I was mentioning earlier, it really goes back to there's always hope. There's always a next shot. There's joy in the journey. The shanks don't define us. It's the good ones that keep us coming back and that, fill our hearts. And there's more to all of us than our worst moments. And there's certainly more to all of us than our worst shots on a golf course. And so we, can't get too worked up about it. And instead, enjoy the journey. Look forward to the next shot. There's always hope. And thankful that, there's new beginnings. And so, one of the things that I see that applied to is how often I see players, no matter what round they've had, they shake hands on the 18th, and what are they doing? They're looking forward to the next one. So there's always an open door to walk through. There's new beginnings. If we're open and humble enough to take a look at it, there's a lot of joy in that journey.
Absolutely. Ross, you got anything else before we go and let Mark out of here?
I do have just one final question, Mark. I was just interested since you wrote this book and, just kind of gave insight on your life and everything that's gone on. How has your life changed just since that book has, been out and the success it's had? And do we think maybe potentially down the road we see a sequel to Caddie Tales?
Yeah. No, it's I wouldn't say my life has changed dramatically yet, except for that it has only giving me the desire to find a few more of those open doors. Actually, next Monday, I'm speaking to a group of golf course superintendents. So that would be an example of a door that's opened specifically because of the book. Somebody read the book and thought I'd be a good speaker for their group. And I'm humbled by that. I'm super excited and thankful for it. And I really hope that there will be more opportunities like that in the future. But there's no doubt going to be more books for sure. That's something, the first one was maybe a little easier to write because it was my life, the future ones are not maybe flowing as easily or as quickly. Cause Caddie Tales I wrote like in a matter of a few weeks, and it's not maybe flowing as easily now, but there's no doubt it's going to happen. And so I'd love to keep caddying, but I'd also love to be able to maybe do more speaking engagements, do more books, and then maybe that'll open up some doors as far as some online, whether it's affiliate marketing or merchandise sales or whatever, but that'll take a while to maybe gain any steam. But yeah, really just thankful for some open doors.
I'm very thankful for having you on, Mark. We greatly appreciate your time for joining us on the podcast, and would love to have you back on another time to continue to chat golf, man. It was a pleasure.
That was a real privilege, guys. So thank you so much, and good luck to you. And if anybody wants to find me, they can find me at Caddie Tales, Mark the Caddie. There's the book available on Amazon, and Caddie Tales podcast available on all of the podcast networks. So thanks for letting me give a plug to that. But I also wish you guys the best. Great job.
Thank you very much, Mark. We appreciate that. And to everyone out there who is interested, I'll have all of Mark's, where you can find Caddie Tales on Amazon, where you can find him on X at Mark the Caddie. I'll have that all tagged down in the description for the people who are watching this live right here, right now, so they can find all of your stuff there. But with Caddie Tales too, whatever is coming next for you, Mark, we all follow you on social media and are very much looking forward to whatever comes next, man.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys. Have a great night.
Thank you so
Absolutely.
much. Mark.
One more time, Mark Milatz, better known as Mark the Caddie on X. Make sure to go give him a follow. Greatly appreciate having him on. It's going to wrap up today's episode of On Tap Golf. To everyone who tuned in or watched this live on YouTube or on social media, we greatly appreciate you showing some support. We'll see you next time on Golf on Tap.